This next interview isn't just with someone who's got great information, great content to present to you, but is also our partner in the launch and marketing of this series, Six Figure Side Hustles, and that's Michael Hearne. I've known Michael for years, and I have to tell you, I'm overly impressed with not only his abilities to do the kind of work he does, but also to be able to communicate it in ways that can help you succeed in the ways that you're looking to. So Michael's a gem. He's got great information. He delivers it very well. His own story, I think, is very compelling. Let's dive into this interview. Michael, we've known each other for a while.
Yeah.
You happen to be exceptionally skilled at what you do. But you got an interesting story too, so let's just start with your history. What got you into being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I was actually flying in a plane on my way back to do a second round as a government contractor in Iraq. Mm-hmm. And I picked up the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I read it. Mm-hmm. Landed in Holland, in Amsterdam, turned around and came back to start my own business.
No kidding, just like that?
Just like that. I knew it was what I was going to do. That was a terrible choice. And it was really hard for many years as a result of being that flippant about it. But in the long run, I don't regret it at all.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting though is that it wasn't a side hustle. You like you didn't keep your job.
No.
You decided to bail and jump all in. Yeah, we're here to talk a little bit more about side hustles. So
yeah.
If you were to give advice to the younger you, would you have said, hey, keep your job and start something on the side? What would you have told yourself?
Yes, that would have been brilliant. It probably would have saved me, definitely would have saved me years of heartache. That's probably, as far as just avoiding pain. I mean, if you're going to start a business, do it in your spare time. It doesn't require, full-time focus to get something going and to test the waters. I came back with this idea of, I'm just going to do whatever. I didn't even know what kind of business I wanted to be in. It was very ill-advised.
Yeah.
And I wound up actually having to go back into the job space, getting a job. But it wasn't really a positive thing at that point. It felt kind of like a defeat.
Yeah.
It caused stress in my marriage, things like that. It probably contributed significantly to my divorce. But over time, kind of figured it out. But it took a lot of years of struggle and a lot of mistakes, really.
Well, our hope here is to help people prevent these mistakes.
Exactly.
That's why they're watching this.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, that book has influenced a lot of people, but in your case, it wasn't, I'm going to just go be a real estate investor. It was just an entrepreneur figuring out how to just work for yourself.
Yeah.
So what was it, you think, that spoke to you that said, did you hate your job? What was the circumstance?
No, I think I've always just kind of been a little bit rebellious. My mom and my teachers could attest to that. I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school, and I lasted 3 years out of my 4-year enlistment because I just kept breaking all the rules. I was the proverbial young Marine who was always getting into trouble, and no one knew what to do with me, and so I got out a year early. I didn't get a bad discharge or anything, but they had enough of my junk. And what really spoke to me was the freedom and being in charge of your own life, your own time. And really up until that point, nobody had even told me that I could start a business, which it seems like maybe that would be a given that people would know that, but
no early mentors because through high school, it's just you were institutionalized in your high school and then went to the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
But I guess that kind of structure didn't speak to you, huh?
No, not at all. And just the fact that there was a logical path to take to accumulate wealth, that really spoke to me. So if you kind of fast forward through like a lot of rough years, it was in 2006 or so whenever I kind of figured out that out of everything that I wanted to do as an entrepreneur, that key skill set really was marketing. Mm-hmm. That was like the driving force behind success in any of these things, whether you want to find a real estate deal, whether you want to sell services, you want to sell a product, you want to be an affiliate. All of those things are driven by the ability to attract customers and to convert them to sales. And so I really became focused on direct response marketing and salesmanship. And that just led me down a path that ultimately I thought to myself, hey, if I master this skill, I'll be able to start any business I want, but I can also get paid to master this skill.
Right.
And so I started to provide direct response copywriting services to people.
Yeah.
And then ultimately wound up doing marketing consulting, digital marketing consulting.
It's interesting that you found marketing to be a common denominator, right? No matter what the business.
Yeah.
And that's sort of in part a creative thing. There's also a structure to it.
Yeah.
But it's a creative thing as compared to saying, yeah, there's operations, there's other things you could have looked at, but marketing seemed to attract you.
Yeah.
How did you go about to learn marketing?
Well, I went to the bookstore and came across an author called Dan Kennedy, who I know that you are
Sure.
familiar with.
Yeah.
And I bought every single one of his books, and I read them in about a month.
Wow.
And it was just so pragmatic. It was so straightforward. It was like, I've always been, the kind of guy who will argue with a fence post.
Yeah.
And so, I kind of naturally had some of these inclinations towards influencing people and persuading people. And then just the way he broke it down really made sense to me. And you look around and, the fact is that probably, I don't know what the percentage is. I can make up a number. So we'll call it 90%.
Right.
Of what people are doing as advertising and marketing is
Right.
extremely ineffective and wasteful. And so this was a way to measure the results, dollar in versus dollar out. That made sense to me. And really that just set me off down a path. And actually, when I read the books, I realized that I had been persuaded to make purchases in the past using these exact techniques,
Right.
and so it just all really clicked for me.
It's interesting. Most people who aren't in your world or in the entrepreneur world in general don't understand how important copy is, and how scientific it can be. Meaning, the testing mechanisms for copy to see what's producing, et cetera. It's very much an objective approach toward business when you can say here's this subject line or this headline and compare it to this one, split test it, get the data, and here you have the outcome. And it becomes very predictable based on how you can measure these things.
Yeah.
And you can literally take the same product with really good copy that does well and mediocre copy and it doesn't move. And I've always been mystified in a sense, saying that, hey, it's just about here's what the benefits are, here's what it can do, and et cetera. But if the copy isn't done right, the best of products will fail. And sadly, some very mediocre products that have great copy succeed when the product probably shouldn't succeed. Is that accurate?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I find that, and I talk to people about this kind of frequently, because you were really you and Jeff were really key in introducing me to this concept of having like such a great product that the copy didn't have to do everything. Whereas in the worlds where I've played in the past as a freelancer and a consultant, a lot of times they focus 80% on the copy and maybe 20% of the effort goes into the actual product, to the point where they sometimes don't even care about the product because they'll know how to sell it, and that makes the cash register ring, and it does result in some bad products getting out there, and it puts a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths and gives them a bad customer experience. Fortunately, having learned from great guys like you and Jeff, you can do both.
Yeah.
You really can.
To me, it's a mandate. I mean, it's if you want to have any kind of longevity, you got to put out good product, or to me, not even good product, but great product.
Yes.
To your point, also, I've noticed that, especially in social media, putting in feeds, there's a lot of companies. Some of them are even foreign companies. They do a really great job on like a little sizzle reel on a product, and maybe a page that looks good, but the product is total crap.
Yeah.
And I think what they do, I mean, they go out, they sell a bunch of stuff kind of in a burst, and they kind of just fold shop and go away, so they don't have to deal with all the refunds, because they'd get a lot of refunds, which is scammy. In essence, it's unfortunate and scammy. So we're here to talk about side hustle.
Right.
How do you define side hustle?
So side hustle would be something that you're able to do part-time, but that's able to generate a full-time income.
That's an interesting caveat. So because sometimes it's like some people look up, make a little extra cash.
Right.
But you would want to frame it saying you're going to work part-time while you keep a job. That's why it's on the side, right?
Yeah.
But you want to create a full-time income from that part-time effort.
Yep.
That's actually a really great goal. You're the first person I've ever heard say that, but keep going. I like this. Go ahead.
That was really my goal, for many years there. I was looking to just work as little as possible while maximizing my income. And so there were, after I got through the years of learning the ropes and making all the mistakes, and where I was working, anywhere from 5 hours on a slow week to 20 hours on a busy week, and making mid six figures. And I would take a month or two off at a time sometimes, and just do whatever I wanted to. I went camping a lot. I loved being out in the wilderness. I was able to create that type of income because of the value of the skill that I created. And so that's where I kind of, maybe the key to that really is, we're taught in a lot of ways to value our time in terms of dollars, but really what people are buying from you is a result, right? So they don't care if it took you 2 hours or 2,000 hours to create a sales letter that makes them $1 million. They want a sales letter that makes them $1 million. So if I could do that in 5 hours a week, what does it matter to them? And so that sort of disassociating the amount of time put into something with the amount of value that it creates was a critical mindset shift.
I've noticed, we hired contract copywriters, quite often, and it is always a project-based fee.
Yep.
It's not, you don't pay them by the hour, and you get an invoice based on that. It's like saying, if you're doing, a product launch of some variety, here's how much it's going to cost for us to do all the written assets for that launch.
Yep.
And I'll tell you that from the entrepreneurial masterminds and so on, the highest paid people, contractors out there, are the good copywriters. They're worth the weight in gold, because they also not only take a fee, but they ask for a percentage of the sales.
Yes.
And the good ones can do that.
Yes.
If they say, I want 2 or 3% of the gross sales, well, if their copywriting is going to make you 30% more revenue, you're happy to give them the few points on it also.
Yeah.
And incidentally, it's a good incentive, because now they're going to maybe spend that extra time to take it up a little bit more, because they're going to benefit from the upside. So it kind of lines up the chariots in the same direction as far as everybody doing well when the launch goes well.
Yeah.
So I think that as a side hustle, copywriting is if somebody has an inclination, is a really good one. Talk about how hard it is to learn this, or how hard or easier. But what's the process of saying, okay, I have a feeling, well, no college education, I have a feeling you probably weren't getting straight A's in English, in English composition and so on.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the case.
So how did you learn to become a copywriter? I know you read books to kind of give you context, but then how do you learn to actually do it?
I was a kid who slept in English class, but the teacher would then read all my papers to the class, because I was just naturally gifted as a writer.
Okay.
So I think that definitely helps, and it was more important in the past than it is today, because of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I want to get to that in a minute.
Yeah, so, but for me, having that natural talent was key, and I think that's important for someone looking at a side hustle, because don't try to force yourself into something that's not natural for you. But for me, writing came very naturally, and I wound up, begging, stealing, borrowing, scratching, doing whatever I could to get my hands on good copywriting courses. And there's some great courses out there, and from those, I just learned, different formulas. So there's different formulas for writing copy. I think some of the more common ones are like attention, interest, desire, action. So you capture someone's attention, you build interest, you create desire, and then you have a call to action. Another one is problem, agitate, solution, where you talk to someone about a problem, you build that problem up, you agitate it, and then you come in with a solution, which is your product. So there are formulas like that, and then there are certain principles that always apply, like focusing on a big problem is always something that's big. Turning features into benefits, not just saying, this water bottle has a cap on it. No, this water bottle has a cap on it so that the water doesn't spill all over the place.
Right.
So turning it into something that kind of is a benefit, and so it doesn't spill on your new suit and ruin your wedding. So kind of expanding on that.
Right.
So there's things like that, and I was motivated to get my own education. I bought training courses online, and then all that was great. But I think the key to me really becoming, I don't know, what some people might consider me a master of the craft. I don't know if I'm there yet.
I would consider you a master. I mean, I've seen your copy.
Then, so actually it was networking. Networking with the right people, and finding the right people who valued the service was critical. So I was really struggling for 5 or 6 years. Like, there was a long dry spell where we were making less than 20 grand a year, and it was terrible. And life was very stressful. And then I started going to this networking group for internet marketers in Austin, Texas. And I started connecting with people who, had online products. I met some of the guys whose products I'd bought. And once I got over the starry eyes and, that sort of shock of being in that crowd, I realized, wait a second, I can go try to sell this to someone who has a corner store and has no idea what good copy is or why it matters,
Right.
or I can go to the people who really value this and I can sell it to them. As a result of that, I wound up writing for some of the biggest and best products and brands and people, gurus in the online marketing space, the online and health products space, and even in financial publishing as well.
So it's kind of interesting because it's one thing they'd say, okay, I got the skill, but now you got to market yourself before you can market for other people, right?
Yeah.
And that's hard, I guess, in the beginning because you're an unknown quantity, right?
Yes.
So did you do any sample write-ups or take somebody's product and say, hey, here's how I would write this up and show it to them? Or how did you win the trust of somebody to want to hire you?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think there's a little bit of art in that, because I never wrote anything what they would say on spec, where you write it for the chance to maybe get the job and or get the gig and make some money off of it. I always got paid, and I think you demonstrate your ability to sell by the process of selling. So I definitely can attribute a lot of it to being in the right groups, in the right rooms with the right people, and then building rapport and trust on a personal level first, not being pushy or needy, because that's very repulsive to people. And then, what I did do, though, is I gave people, great deals. So I definitely charged a lot less early on, and I did that so that I could write for some really good people.
Right.
Who would mentor me and take my craft to the next level. And that's really the answer to your earlier question. How I got great at it was I got out there and I did it.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing that's going to replace, that 10,000 hours of experience to becoming an expert at anything. So,
well, something I think you said earlier is important when considering side hustle is that rather than just look at, here the best opportunities in copywriting or it's in sales or it's in whatever it might be, the first question is, what am I good at, right?
Yes.
What are my strengths? So as you said, you might have slept through English class, but you still were getting your papers read because people liked your writing. So, but if you maybe didn't have that fundamental, let's call it innate nature to be able to write, this might not have been the right choice for you. Because in this particular series, what we're trying to do is show, here's a bunch of different things. And I think there's probably two aspects of that. One is maybe you're even good at writing, but if you hate writing, it's still not going to work.
Exactly,
right?
yes, true.
So say, what's a strength? And it doesn't have to be like a superpower yet, but just something that you have a decent amount of ability for, that you can turn into a superpower. And then, what are you passionate about? Because especially if you're side hustling, and tell me if you agree with this, but if you're side hustling, you want to be doing something that you can look forward to doing, because you're not going to do much of it if you've already got a full-time job. You're not going to be doing much of it, on the side if you just don't like doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do think it has to line up with your passions to a degree, your natural talents to another degree. So, there are people who the thought of working at a desk makes them, want to jump off a tall building or something, so they just want to be outside. Mm-hmm. So, looking at some of the ways you're naturally wired definitely plays a role. What do people ask for your help with? Mm-hmm. There's people who make a six-figure income helping people organize their closets. There are people that make six figures walking dogs, mowing lawns.
Yeah.
There's so many paths to doing this. And so I think there is a bit of a discovery. And then within that, because I've been thinking about this in prep for this conversation, is, what is sort of the secret? Well, if you go out there, and I'll just use my writing as an example. So if I go out there and I'm a writer, mm-hmm. everybody's a writer. Everybody writes something.
Right.
So what is special about that? Like, how can you niche down? How can you narrow your focus into something that's higher value? So, with the example of a landscaper, right? Mm-hmm. Being a general landscaper is one thing, but if you were to focus, say, on aquaculture, mm-hmm. Now you're a specialist.
Right.
So by kind of finding something that aligns with things you enjoy, and then your talents as well, and then kind of focusing that down to just a razor's edge. I think that's one of the best ways to start to get an idea of what a side hustle could be for you. But I want to go all the way back to the beginning, and I'll say something that you'll recognize from Napoleon Hill, who says it all starts with a desire.
Right.
So if you don't have that desire to go out and improve your life financially, to reclaim your time, to work smarter and not harder, then you don't have that natural curiosity to go out and figure it out. And that is required, because there is some, trial and error early on to getting it right.
Yeah, it's interesting, as we're having this conversation, inflation is a big deal. I've got a son that works at a bank in New York City, and his salary didn't go up anywhere close to proportional of the inflation, and that it's putting a squeeze on people, and so I'm able to see it firsthand, in my own kid, but I see it in the world in general.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people right now who are considering side hustle that never considered it before, and he's doing it. It's like I'm not making his life easy. It's like, hey, you gotta go get this figured out. That's
good for you.
It's hard as a parent, but at the same time, it's necessary. That's I did it. And I'm better because of it. And I think context or psychology matters a lot. Like you said, desire, and I think your frame of reference can either generate desire, or it can squash it, because one way to look at this is, geez, inflation is so high, and now, God, I got to go out and I got to figure out more money. And another way is, wow, this has forced me toward an opportunity I might not have considered before. Maybe I was a little comfortable, and now I'm going to get uncomfortable, but it's going to create a better future for me.
Yeah.
And I think working on, because to me your psychology and your energy generates the actions that are going to create the outcomes. It's kind of like the first domino that falls.
Yeah.
And so what I'm hearing in what you're talking about also is that just because there's a need, don't maybe look at that need as being a negative thing.
Right.
Look at it as something that's going to cause you to go out and learn a new skill and generate income that you wouldn't have generated otherwise. And maybe you're going to work harder, but because I can remember going through school, because you're a college student, and probably a lot of college students watching this. If you're going to school full time and you're working like I did, that's a side hustle too. Your full time gig is school, and then you got to go make money. And I worked as a waiter in restaurants, and I did varying things, but mostly I waited tables. But I actually looked forward to going to work every day. I was really into food and wine. I loved studying it. I loved serving it. And so on. So rather than say, "Oh, geez, I didn't get born to rich parents. They could afford to put me through school. I have to pay for all this." And but now I look back and say, "Wow, it's a really good thing that I had to go through that experience."
Yeah.
So when you have someone who approaches you, I don't know if you're mentoring some people or just in passing, or maybe at masterminds, younger guys who are looking to try to figure out what you figured out. How do you frame them up, psychologically to enter the idea of a side hustle?
So, with your story, like, you looked forward to going and serving, you were into wine and food, and you're great with people, and you see in that the seeds of your success today, kind of going back to that, what are you naturally good at? So I'll try to find out what someone wants. And a lot of times that can lead to some too specific situations. But what I try to do, and what I did early on, I'm actually just remembering this now, is I really would sit and I would think about, what does an ideal day look like to me? What do I want my life to look like? And I still have that habit today. Like, I think about what my life's going to be like in 6 months, or in 5 years when I've achieved some more of my goals. And for me, that's how I wound up picking the writer lifestyle, where it's like I pictured my days having a lot of free time. So, starting with, where do you want to get to? Like, what's the outcome that you want to get to? And then you can back up from that and say, like, okay, maybe what they're already doing is on that path. They're working towards that. They can achieve that goal with what they're doing right now. If so, then, it becomes focused on how do you do that more intelligently, more efficiently, how do you accelerate it, things like that. But if not, then you have to have that moment of realization where you admit to yourself, what I'm doing right now is never going to get me to where I want to be.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then...
So I guess the first step is figure out where you want to be, as you said, right? Because if you don't know, then you can end up anywhere, right?
Absolutely.
So, and you had, I think, mentioned in your own story, and I think this is kind of important, that there's a lot of years of struggle.
Yeah.
So what prevented you from giving up?
I don't know. I don't know, because there were plenty of opportunities. I know that I mentioned I got divorced. I remarried an amazing lady, Victoria, and she was always behind me. So having her say, like, no, you're not giving up in my darker moments where I was like, I need to just give up, quit. I can go get a job, forget this. Like, I'm never going to be successful. She was like, shut up. You're not going to do that. Wow. It'll kill you inside if you do that. So having her there.
That is a great wife. Yeah.
She's amazing. Yeah. Best gift God ever gave me. But at the same time, I don't, she was there to encourage me. I don't know that I had it in me to quit. But I know that that's really a huge differentiator between the people who succeed and the people who fall short of what they want. And because life will give you plenty of opportunities to quit. Yeah. And you think that you've arrived someday. Like, no, you've never arrived. There's always something else that, like, you're going to want to do. And there's always going to be reasons and obstacles, and life's going to gut check you. And it's, there's always reasons to quit. But ultimately, knowing that you fail when you quit. You don't fail when you fail. You fail when you fail and then quit. Right. And that's just something that just made perfect sense to me. And, I just wanted it. Like, maybe it goes back to that desire. I wanted it too bad. Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of important, right? So now let's talk about AI.
This is a game changer in many respects. I mean, I'm spending a lot of time just thinking about what are the implications, and certainly significant implications in copywriting. I mean,
Yeah.
we're using AI in our teams in that way, and I'm in the middle of writing another book right now, and I'm like, well, let me check this thing out. I go in and I say, and there's a chapter I'm doing on identity, and I'm like,
nice.
let's, write me the difference. It was ChatGPT-4 that I was using, and I basically said, tell me the difference between people who think that identity is innate versus acquired, and cite some experts, et cetera. So, within seconds, the thing wrote me a book chapter. And now I'm not cutting and pasting a chapter because it doesn't say. I have to take that and give context to it. It's more like a research assistant for me at this point, where I have to then go from that. But I've been seeing, AI will code web pages. So like a lot of people say, on the side, I can do coding. I'm like, maybe think about that, because I don't think many humans are going to be doing that kind of coding in the near future. But somebody's got to still direct the AI, and I think that's important. But I'm just recognizing this is just released in its infancy right now in the public forum, and where's this going to be in just a year or two?
Yeah.
So talk about your perceptions of AI, how what you think the implications are for somebody considering side hustle, and how it's influenced your particular area, which is copywriting.
Yeah. So AI is a game changer for side hustles. People can now provide services that used to take years to learn, to master, a lot of specialized skill and education. Now they can provide those just by speaking to an artificial intelligence bot.
Right.
So that in itself is a game changer. So, for example, there's a tool out there called Jasper AI. It's a content writing system. It's based on ChatGPT as its back end NLP source. And what you can do is you can go in and you can say, write me it's got recipes, formulas. So you say a blog post recipe, and you put in the title of your blog post, and you tell it to generate an outline. And then you can tweak and adjust the outline, and then it'll take the outline and write a paragraph or two on each of the bullets in your outline.
Wow.
And then it'll write a conclusion at the end of it. So for a service provider, and that's just one. So like DALL-E, DALL-E, is a graphic design, word prompted graphic design AI. So you can go in and say, make me a space cowboy on Mars, a picture of that, and it'll do it.
Wow.
And it'll do it in seconds. It'll not just do it once. It'll give you several options to pick from. Same thing for, like you were talking about, coding. So with these technologies, I actually see it as a very unique window of opportunity that exists right now, similar to whenever the internet was young, and you could just throw up a web page and write golf club 1,000 times, and you'd rank at the top of search engines and get all the traffic and sell a bunch of golf clubs. Right now, people who are willing to go out there and play with this AI can provide these services that, again, used to take serious education and skill to acquire, and they can sell them at a scale that you would normally have had to have like a team of 10 employees to put out that much work product. So, for example, content writers. If you, whether you're a good writer or not, you can become a content writing service provider, and you can use a tool like Jasper.ai to provide blog posts for someone in the health and wellness space, for someone in finance, for someone, and you pick the topic, and you can sell those blog articles, for, some people sell them by the word, some people sell them, 10, 20, $50 an article. All of those things can be serviced and provided, and you can find clients for that on sites like, Upwork, which used to be Elance, you'll find them on Craigslist. There's all kinds of places where people are looking for that work for Same thing for coding, same thing for graphic design. You don't have to know how to use a graphic design program anymore to create people graphics.
So now, I guess the idea is you have to learn how to manage AI.
The AI,
Be what they call a prompt engineer, or somebody who knows how to prompt properly.
Very much so.
So if you were starting today, let's say, now let's roll the clock back, but say, rather than the time when you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, read all the Dan Kennedy books, et cetera, and you had really developed your skills and went out into the marketplace.
Yeah.
Let's say that you're saying, okay, I need to create side hustle today. How would you approach it, given that AI is on the scene?
Wow, well, that's a good question, because there's so many opportunities. I think I would probably look for a market that I felt I could, find and access easily. So, example, Upwork. I would go on Upwork. I would see what jobs there are available there that I could fulfill with AI. And then I would become an expert at that particular AI, prompting it to generate the outputs that I wanted for that service. And there's so many things out there that, it's everything from video editing, audio, scripting, research, graphic design. They're all out there. So I would probably start by looking where there's demand and where I could kind of use AI as a hack to fill, mass volume on that demand.
Yeah, because what's interesting is that you said, the idea has been, when we talked about it, what's your strength, but now you can let the AI be your strength.
Exactly.
So now what's your passion?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So that's kind of what it boils down to, and we're in this sort of awkward phase, meaning that we're in the transition to AI, where companies, everybody's moving toward it, right? Yeah. So I think for the person who's considering side hustle, they have to consider, how AI would play the role in whatever this side hustle might be.
Yeah.
And again, AI is not going to cut a lawn yet. The robots aren't there yet. AI is not going to do certain things like that. But the first question, I guess, as you're considering a particular side hustle is, does AI or can AI play a role in this? And if it can, to what extent?
Yeah.
And because today, it's in transition, I would see, but it's 2 years from now, the adoption rate for whatever you might be doing could be very different.
Yeah.
So how has it affected you as a copywriter? If you're serving clients, et cetera, have you restructured anything, or do you just use it? People still just hire you and you just use it?
Yeah. So pretty much these days I write copy for myself. And I have not yet found that AI can write at the same level that I can. Much like what you were saying, I use it as a research assistant. I can put together a list of, what are some of the negative emotions people feel when they can't lose weight.
So if you're writing for a weight loss product,
right? If I'm writing for a weight loss product,
just getting the research done.
Get some of that research done, and some of it you kind of intuitively know, because I've lost weight and remember what I felt like before that, but it'll help you kind of enumerate things and expand on some of your ideas, and can be a prompt. So it's like a brainstorming partner for me there, and then helping me to list the reasons why someone might want to start a side hustle. Like, what are some of the reasons they might feel like they're not able to do it? What are some of the psychological hurdles they're going to have to overcome to do that? And that helps me kind of handle objections in copy or things like that, and just understand who I'm talking to. But what I've found in some of my, and I also do content writing these days for my own stuff as well. And if you're just like doing some real basic, educational stuff, and you're not really doing thought leadership stuff, it's really powerful. What it hasn't gotten to yet is the ability to do what we're great at, which is putting different pieces together and being like a thought leader, meaning like, okay, these are the ways everybody else has done it, but what's the new and innovative idea that takes it to the
and
next
AI
level?
can't do that. It
can't.
it really lives in the past.
Yes.
It doesn't create a future. It doesn't.
Yes.
It's not something that assembles new ideas, basically.
That's right.
Can you just, in case somebody doesn't understand the difference between content copy versus marketing copy?
Yeah, absolutely. Marketing copy would bring someone closer to the point where they're making a purchase decision. So if I were to send an email out that gets someone to click over to a video that gets them to make a purchase decision, that email would be marketing copy, and the video would be sales copy.
Yeah.
So, whenever people talk about copywriting, it's usually, either, marketing copy, whether it's social media, email, a brochure, or sales copy where they're actually trying to get someone to make a purchase decision.
So the job of marketing copy is to get them to the sales copy, basically.
Yes,
And the
very
sales
much
copy's
so.
job is to get them to purchase.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
a little bit of pre-framing in there,
Yeah.
and there's a lot we could go into on copywriting, it's fun to nerd out on that stuff, but those are the broad strokes. And then content marketing would be something like an educational piece, like a blog post that doesn't really have a selling objective. It might be to establish the authority of the person who is writing the content. So if you want to let people know that you're an expert on XYZ, there's nothing better than demonstrating your expertise on that topic with a great thought piece of content.
Yeah. So where you're not trying to drive them to any sale, you're just basically
Right.
trying to educate them.
Yeah.
Got it. So one of the things I think people maybe AI is creating hesitation, I think, for some people saying, geez, I don't know what to do now because this new thing is happening.
Yeah.
But tell me if you'd agree with this particular thought. My advice for people would be just get in and get started, and start learning whatever the thing is that you need to learn, that you're going to learn, your craft. And over time, once you start becoming more expert, you'll know how AI fits in and what to do. Because if you try to sit here and you get paralyzed by not making a decision or moving in a direction because you're just unsure what's going to happen with AI, I don't think any action you take is a waste. It just is it's like the guided missile thing. Never go straight to the target. It's always going back and forth till it hits a target. And I think AI is exciting and threatening all at the same time, right?
Yeah.
But don't let it feel threatening. I'd say go out there and start generating something. And to me, the first victory is that first dollar you earn, right? It's like, okay, that's money came in. Yeah, wow, that's pretty exciting. And then start building on that. So, do you have any kind of summary thoughts about somebody who right now is either struggling with a side hustle, it's not working, or is for the first time trying to say I want to get started in this direction?
Yeah, I would say that while we are kind of in desperate economic times right now, like you said, that's definitely can be seen as a positive because it's going to push you out of your comfort zone, and that's where growth happens. At the same time, we're really in a position as a society to have side hustles. I mean, a lot of people are now working from home as a result of the lockdowns, and while there were a lot of negatives that came out of that, that is one positive where people have more time freedom, more autonomy as a result of that. So there's never really been a better time in history to start a side hustle. And this has really just been an evolution that's been growing for the last few decades. It's kind of the gig economy thing that they were talking about in the early 2000s. It's just a continuation of that. And it doesn't have to be, anything broad or grand. I think, there'll be a lot of people in this series who have a lot of really accessible ways to get started. And the key is just get out there and do it. Give it a try. If you have the desire to improve your financial life, there's never been a better time, and there's never been more tools and resources or opportunity. There's a global market out there because of the internet. There are sites where you can go and you can find people who are literally asking for the thing you're trying to sell. They'll post jobs on sites like Upwork. I keep going back to that one.
Yeah.
They should give me a sponsorship. Yeah. So there's that, and then one of the things that happened to me as I was out there selling copywriting services is I branched off into marketing consulting, because I found that as I was giving copywriting services, I was setting up to sell my services, I had to tell people what they needed because they didn't even know what they needed.
Right.
And then I realized, wait a second, that's a huge value to people. And I wound up working with some of the biggest publishing companies out there. As a result, companies doing hundreds of millions of dollars a year and bringing them this very same thing that I've been giving away for free for years. So I would look at that, like, what are you currently giving away for free that people would pay you to do?
Yeah.
And maybe that's a great place to wrap up.
It is. So, Michael, it's been, I think, really informative to know your journey and kind of see where it went from high school to an early departure from the Marines to a tour on flight. It's a pretty engaging story as far as saying wow, and how this led to success. I mean, I'm on the inside of kind of this entrepreneurial world, and I know you're highly regarded, very highly regarded as a marketer and a copywriter, and so knowing where you came from to land there, I think should say that, hey, it's not anybody can do this, but people who have a commitment to do it, I think anybody can figure it out if they just have the commitment to figure it out. And that's really, I think, where it lands. So I appreciate you openly sharing your story and also sharing your current expertise.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Patrick.
That completes my interview with Michael Hearne. Man, I learned a lot from this guy. I'm sure you did too. Thanks for being here.